Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the One Hub Racing Twitch channel for something completely different, something brand new here to One Hub at Twitch. We are on the PC platform with Assetto Corsa Competizione for round number 1 of the Lambo Super Trofeo series here at all Italian circuits. My name is Luke Etheridge. Joining me in the commentary box tonight and for the rest of the season is Paul. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, mate. Very excited to be part of the first One Hub PC ACC season with this Italian Lambo Super Trofeo Cup. And we've got plenty of drivers in there and 3 brilliant tracks to go to as well, all set in Italy. So, yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you've just briefly saw the tracks on screen there. Monza tonight, I think probably infamous on Assetto Corsa rather than being famous, then Imola, and then Monza finishing things off. All drivers are going to be in the Super Trofeo Evo car, so the latest evolution of that one around these 3 Italian tracks. And apart from that, things are very similar to what we've seen in the PlayStation side of things that you might have noticed on the Tuesday nights here on One Hub's Twitch channel. Top 12 drivers getting points. There's going to be no sprint races or no endurance races for the drivers to worry about. Every single one is going to be 10 minutes practice, 20 minutes qualifying, and 60 minutes of racing, which for GT cars is normally quite short.
It is indeed, but I'm seeing a fair few more of these sort of shorter style races that you'd perhaps be more akin to if you're likened to Formula 1 leagues and stuff like that popping up now, which it's got its benefits and it's got its downsides. Obviously, people are more used to the endurance side of things when it comes to ACC and GT3 cars in general, but no, it gives a little bit more flavour having a shorter race and a little bit more frantic. You don't have as much time to consider your strategy compared to everybody else to sort of make your moves, whereas you got a bit more time to relax in an endurance race. So it might spice things up a bit, giving the drivers a little bit less time to deal with everything going on within the race. Obviously, an hour is still quite a lengthy amount of time, but not quite what they might be used to.
No, it's probably, you know, those that have raced on F1, which is quite a lot of these drivers, those who might have raced in One Hub ACC before, but I know we were talking before the stream. I'm more used to commentating over 6, 8, 12-hour races on this game, so even though we said officially there is no sprint races, the drivers can treat this a bit more of a sprint, and they've all been warned in the pre-drivers briefing. Monza, it's not a race you can win on lap 1. It's certainly a race you can lose at lap 1, and particularly turn number 1 indeed. It is infamous in sim racing circles. ACC turn number 1 always seems to cause a bit of chaos at Monza.
It does, as the famous words go, to finish first you must finish. And that will be in the back of every single one of these drivers' minds, especially as we head to that infamous Monza T1. I think it's infamous in every form of sim racing. You hear Monza and you get this sort of PTSD flashbacks of all of the moments you've been wiped out at turn 1, lap 1. So hopefully we won't see any of that tonight. But it isn't just turn 1 where you can make moves throughout this track, of course. We've got plenty of opportunity to overtake as we head round into we've got the Della Roger chicane at turn 4, as well as, if you're feeling really brave, down into Ascari as well at the end of the long back straight. So we could be seeing moves all over the track throughout this evening. In equal machinery, it is all going to be down to skill when they happen.
Yes, it is indeed. You can see just a few of the drivers starting to head out there on track. It is all equal for machinery, so it's all going to be down to skill. Means overtakes, you know, might be a bit more difficult to come by in the first few stages, and drivers might be making things work on the strategy as well. It is a compulsory pit stop in this race, so they're all going to have to do that and all just make sure that they get things nice and straightforward and don't cause too many problems for themselves. So those of you who've seen the leaks before on PlayStation and seen other ones might be familiar with a few of the different names we've got out here. We have got Dexter Klaus Christensen in the ERT car. Of course, ERT, one of the partners here at One Hub. He's racing in this Super Trofeo. We've not spoken too much about the cars. Normally, here at One Hub, it's been GT3, sometimes GT4 cars. This one, a different kettle of fish. You've got to treat it with a bit more respect. It's definitely got a lot of downforce of some of the faster cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Though one thing I do find with the Lamborghini, and it may just be me being me, but whenever I've driven any of the GT3s in this game, the Lamborghini has always been the most, it's a beginner-friendly sort of style of car. it's a lot more forgiving than some of the other cars that may be a little bit more bitey if you get things wrong. As I'm just seeing somebody getting it wrong in the background of my shot as I say that, but it's a lot less likely to fling you off into a barrier. It's a little bit more forgiving. Don't get me wrong. If you do get it wrong bad enough, you are going to feel the result of that. But for a lot of these drivers that maybe don't have as much experience with GT3, I think this car is going to be a good crossover for them coming into the sort of closed cockpit GT side of things, to sort of get a bit more of a feel for how it works without being punished too hard for maybe that lack of experience.
Yeah, certainly. It just gives them that bit of a softer entry. It is going to be a series where, given the short nature, you're going to have to hit the ground running pretty early on. Can't afford to have too many mistakes in this championship. First 12 drivers get points. It is the same point system that we're all used to seeing across the F1 and across the ACC side on the PlayStation. And there is also the comeback points, which is quite an interesting system. And sort of, if you have a bad qualifying, it does give you that little bit of a bonus opportunity to just pick up that one extra point.
It does indeed. So there's 1 point up for grabs for the drivers in the top 10 and in the back 10 that make up the most positions from their qualifying spot. So as you say, if you perhaps make a mistake in qualifying and start a bit further down than where your pace would otherwise put you, you can at least make a point back. Maybe the win won't be on for you, but you can still not lose as much to the rivals around you if you do make that mistake in qualifying. As for example, finishing, going from 6th up to 4th and netting yourself that point means instead of getting the 12 points, you're going to get the 13. Whereas if your championship rival is finishing first in that race, for example, you're only going to lose 7 points rather than 8 in the championship. And in a championship that's so short, the points gaps are obviously going to be a lot lower through the season, with only 3 races to get any points. So every single point is going to matter come the end of the season when we reach Misano.
Yeah, certainly it will. So Monza, Imola, Misano, drivers just making their way around, getting a few practice runs in, just getting a bit of feel for, for what this track's like. Obviously they're not too bothered about how the cars are doing at the moment, not worrying too much about what performances they'll be putting in, but they'll be hoping, obviously, as the day goes on, that they just get a bit more used to things. And you never know, we might get some rain later on, but thankfully for now it is beautiful sunshine here at Monza, and I'm sure that will be music to all the drivers' ears.
Absolutely, because if Monza T1 was a meme beforehand, if you throw rain in there, there's going to be chaos if you end up with rain at Monza Turn 1. But as you say, thankfully, the sky is looking beautifully blue so far. And I'm not sure, I'm just checking. We've not got long left of practice now before we go to qualifying either. So hopefully that weather will stay the same and we'll see the fastest laps that all of these drivers are able to do. Most of them have actually set somewhat of a lap time in practice. So we've got a reasonable idea of everybody's pace before we go into qualifying. But speaking of the drivers and setting times and things like that, we've not really spoken much about who these drivers are just yet. We've got, at the moment, there are 14 of them in the server, which I know is a few short of what I was perhaps expecting. Only 1 or 2, and we do know of one of them, unfortunately, from what I could gather from the Discord beforehand, is Taylor Brady, otherwise known as ERT APX, isn't going to be able to start this race tonight. He's had some wheel issues from what we can see in the Discord before the race, which is incredibly sad to see because he's an incredibly accomplished driver in ACC. On the PlayStation side, he finished 3rd in the last One Hub season, if my note-taking is correct. So it's incredibly unfortunate to lose such a competitive driver so early on in the season, but that's not to say we don't have more competitive drivers waiting in the wings. Yeah,
there's some very quick drivers across this field. As we said, fortunately we have lost one driver, Nathan as well. He's putting good performances for the ERT man across the PlayStation side of things, and also on PlayStation, on GT, on ACC as well, doing a good performance last time around. It would have been interesting to see Aiden versus his team boss, Klaus Christensen. That was mentioned in the drivers' press conference, whether there'd be a bit of a sacking in the rivalries if there was an issue between them two. But I think, at least thankfully from that point of view, we're not going to see them two race tonight, and hopefully we won't have got a collision between them. But it definitely would have been nice to see how some of these different drivers would have coped with racing each other on what is a very different platform, if we're being honest, to what a lot of these drivers are used to. I know certainly he's not in the session yet. Hopefully he'll be able to get in before the end of qualifying, obviously. Liam New he's not raced on the PC whatsoever. So, and I don't think he's raced on ACC whatsoever. So this is a completely new experience for him. I'm sure he's just hoping to put in a consistent performance.
Yeah, absolutely. You briefly sort of hinted at a point I was going to make as well. There is a lot of these drivers have come over from the PlayStation side of things, and even on the same game from ACC on PS4 to ACC on PC, a lot of people say it is still a different feel to it. It's the same in most of the games that are on multiple platforms. The PC version seemingly feels a little bit different to some people. I can't verify that because I've never played ACC on the PS4, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if that does reflect in some of the drivers we're seeing here on the grid. Of course, a lot of them, as you said earlier on, are one hub veterans, either on the F1 side or on the PlayStation side in the ACC League over there. So it'll be, yeah, I'm intrigued to see how they get on the PC version. We've got a lot of drivers, from what I could gather early on, that either haven't raced through SimGrid before, so we couldn't really see what any results they've had previously were, or if they have been through SimGrid, were pretty much mainly PlayStation players before. So it does give it a little bit of a mix-up, perhaps, as we're now getting very close to qualifying.
Yeah, we are getting very close to qualifying as well. The drivers just getting their practice laps in. You can see there then, Nathan Samba fastest at the moment on a 1:49.212, less than a tenth of a second separating the top 4 drivers there. So session has ended. We have got the green light out for qualifying then. But I think well, very briefly before we see what's going to happen in this qualifying session, one of us has already done a lap around this circuit. So we're going to head and check that out this time. Here's a lap of the Monza circuit as driven by our very own Paul in the commentary box here, heading down the straight towards the first chicane. Of course, a very long straight here. Expect to see plenty of slipstreaming action as you just move up through the gears in towards 6th gear, heading towards the Rettifilio, trying to keep it over to the left-hand side as much as you possibly can, and then spotting that braking zone there, smoothly down the gears into 1st gear, putting as much lock on the car as possible to ensure you can get that car around nice and comfortably as you now head through Curva Grande. Cars will be going side by side through here as much as they can get away with. Hopefully we won't see any argy-bargy from any of them or any incidents in the race, and towards another perfect opportunity point, overtaking opportunity as well around here. Luke Boggia chicane down into this one towards 2nd gear, one that you can afford to take a bit more curb on, definitely on the second part, to make sure you get that possible run. Now, towards the part of the circuit, it's one of the few parts that is actually a bit more medium speed around here at Monza. The first of the Lesbos, you take that one a bit slower, and then the second Lesbo, again, a crucial corner for getting a good exit out of. Paul just struggling with the wheel a slight bit there, as you now head down this other straight, flat out through the left-hand king, underneath the old banking, last used for Formula 1 racing, way back over 60 years ago, towards the Ascari chicane. Always a tricky corner to get right. It is always tempting to carry a bit more speed through here than what is actually possible. Paul doing a decent job there, keeping it off the curbs. Another one that can always cause just a few tiny little issues. And now it is all about getting your run right, spotting your braking zone towards the Parabolica corner, the Alboreto Parabolica, as it has now been renamed, of course, heading down towards that corner. 3rd gear through there. Make sure you get a good exit as possible. Some drivers like to take that bit of a later apex to get the car straightened up as much as you possibly can. And that is a lap around the Monza circuit. Not bad whatsoever, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, I was dreading when you were going to put that on, to be honest, because I know compared to a lot of these drivers that we're going to be seeing going around here tonight, I'm a good few seconds off the pace, but yeah, it's good fun nonetheless to crack into one of the Lamborghinis and make your way around here. And a great track to open the season around Monza as well, as we are opening qualifying now. Every single driver is currently out there on circuit doing a qualifying lap, or at least starting a qualifying lap. And I'm just keeping my eyes on Nathan Samba at the moment, making his way around the Curva Grande on his first lap. I think he's got another car just in front of him at the moment, but he shouldn't be affected by that at all. That is Gabler just up the road, but I think he's far enough ahead that won't be a problem unless he's got miles more pace, in which case you'd hope that Gabler sees him coming and moves kindly out of the way. But we're heading through the first Lesmo now into the second Lesmo, and he's gaining a little bit actually on Gabler, so this may be a problem if he gets a better exit heading down towards Ascari on his first qualifying lap. Of course, he does still have 16 minutes more of qualifying to set a lap time, so it won't be the end of the world if we do see a little bit of argy-bargy on the first couple of laps of qualifying. But just through Ascari we go with Nathan Samba then in the number 97 car, in that very nice looking camouflage livery actually. I believe they're all using liveries that can be found in the game, and Samba is now going to make his way past Gabler then as we head down towards the Curva Parabolica and see what sort of a lap time he has set. Ohak has set a first benchmark time of everybody in the session, then a 1:49.0 is up on the board for him. Let's see what Nathan Samba can do to rival that as Marius comes across the line with a 1:50.8, and the times are coming thick and fast with Dane now with a 1:54, and Samba's next across the line with a 1:49.4, putting him second.
Yeah, not a bad lap whatsoever there from Samba, putting him into second place for now. Ohak seems to have hit the ground running early on as well. Christensen there, the Dane, going up into third place, so things looking pretty good as things stand at the moment for the ERT side of things, as Dimarchi just puts himself there in towards second place again. A pretty respectable lap from him. As you can see, we've got a bit of a max between, you know, pro class drivers, silver class, just a couple of amateur drivers in Gabler and Volco. That's just obviously the game's classification, and will have no effect on what their classification is on this series, so they'll all be aiming to beat themselves. But I suppose there's that little bit of pride, even if as a league we're not really paying too much attention to that. If you can be the fastest silver class driver, if you can be the fastest amateur driver, it does just give you that little bit of pride.
It does indeed, and being able to secure that will maybe be a thing, as I'm just seeing David Ohak taking just a little bit of gravel coming out of Ascari on his next flying lap. He's a little bit down. We've got improvements almost across the board on this second set of laps, so the driver's getting the tyres up to temperature now on this second set of laps, which is something that we should probably talk a little bit about as well, is the tyre temperatures. It does take a couple of laps sometimes to get those tyres into the right window, so we should see times falling a little bit more as Ohak is now about to start another lap of his own. The biggest improvements at the moment, we've got Schultz, who did a 52.0 on the first lap. He's currently 2.1 seconds faster, so he could be moving his way nicely up the grid with this lap time. Just keeping my eyes, as we've got a long train of cars coming down towards the Parabolica. This time I can see the 97, 21, 76, 26, 12, 96 and 29, all in a nice little line going down the track. Everybody sort of in the same area, so it's almost like they've all come out at the same time for this qualifying, which may help them, it may hinder them. Of course, they can't get the slipstream if they're close enough, as we've got a spinner. I believe that's Marius spun at the first corner, and let's see, Marius is currently sitting in P10, but back in the pits after that little trip across the gravel.
Yeah, having a bit of a moment there. So Marius has gone into P10. Gigel Popar was improving on his time, just in 10th place at the moment, so he is going to stay in the pits. Most of the drivers have had their first run of the session. The only one who hasn't is Johannes Mellers at the moment. Car number 69 down in 14th place, but it is Ohak fastest by just under a tenth of a second. 1:49.025 plays 1:49.105 for Ricardo Dimarchi. Chris Christensen in that third place at the moment. Samba, Schultz, Wing, Brady, Coltei, Dane, Popper, your top 10. Still 12 and a bit minutes to go. You'd expect things maybe to start closing up towards the end of the session as the drivers just try and find that little bit more pace. Johan's not really finding the pace he'd be wanting at the moment. Looks as though no, he's going to carry on this lap. His first lap didn't count for him in the end. That one is good enough to put himself in towards 7th place. A much better lap from him, as Jason Gabler struggled a bit on his first one. He's spending a lot more time on this one. 2 seconds up at the moment. Should bring him back into contact with the rest of the field.
It should indeed, and it is going to be closing up. I've just been keeping my eyes on the relatives across this this next flurry of laps that we're about to see come in, and it's looking like it's going to be very, very tight for pole position. David Ohak currently improving on his lap. He was about a tenth of a second faster than his best before. Ricardo Dimarchi made a mistake in the middle sector. I believe it was coming out of the second Lesmo. He was nearly 3/10 faster than his previous best, which would have been just enough to pip David Hack for pole position, so they're almost dead equal on pace. DeMarchi's currently got the fastest first sector of anybody on his previous lap time as well, so it's going to be very, very close when qualifying does draw to a close. We've got 11.5 minutes left of qualifying, so plenty of time for somebody to come along and upset the apple cart. But I think for the moment we're starting to see drivers come into the pits, have a little bit of a rest, evaluate, maybe go over where they think they've lost their time on their first couple of laps, and get ready to go out for another session. But we've still got plenty of cars out there at the moment. Only a couple are actually into the pits. I wonder if we'll see a few more coming in. We've got there are a few people. We've got Schultz has just gone around. In fact, he is now back in the garage, and I imagine Popper will be coming back in as well, as he is 32 seconds down. No, he is staying out, so I'm going to stick with Popper then. Who's not really, well, he set at 50.7, but I imagine he's got more pace in there. He's just trying to find the limit, I think, in this early part of qualifying, as we've seen a couple of wry laps from him where the Lamborghini gets away from him a little bit. But I think there's more pace in there for Popper in the 63 car as he makes his way through the Rettifilio and onto the Curva Grande this time, and he's already nearly half a second up.
Yeah, so straight away just showing what we were talking about earlier, you can lose all sorts of time coming through that first part of the track if you do just get it wrong at the moment. But Popper, so there's a yellow flag further back. That is the number 76 car of Klaus, who has now decided to bring it back to the pits. Not sure whether he was just pulling out of the way there, trying to just avoid causing any issues. Popper's still about half a second up on his personal best at the moment, which would drag him onto that fifth row of the grid where Brady and Dane are at the moment. But halfway through the session, Hack, the only driver now in towards the 1 minute 48, so he's done a fantastic job to do that. And just looking at the sector times at the moment, he's a bit slower in sector 1, sector 2 and sector 3. He seems to be gaining that time, so whether that's slight setup differences, maybe his car not doing as well in a straight line heading towards turn number 1, but once you've got some of the medium speed stuff here at Monza, it seems like Hack is just doing a better job. But Popper's really starting to find some time at the moment, really progressing through the gears, about 1.1 seconds up on his personal best at the moment, and it is quite crowded in that midfield. You know, Coltei to Melez is only about 1.5 tenths of a second at the moment, so there's definitely an opportunity for the Romanian car number 63. Of course, in Formula 1, George Russell was known as a bit of a qualifying specialist before this season. Popper proving that he's doing pretty well in that Lamborghini there as he heads towards the finish line. This should put him in and around 6th or 7th place. Just waiting to see what that time comes up across the line. I wonder there whether he got done for track limits coming out of Parabolica, because he did just look to the layman's eye very wide indeed.
Yeah, quite possibly. That lap time would have put him, I believe, in 7th position if that lap time had gone through. It was a 1:49.6 something. I didn't quite catch what the last part was before it disappeared off my screen. But yeah, it's not counted. So sadly, it did look like he went a little bit wide. But this is what I was saying before. He's finding the limits. He's got time in qualifying to find those limits, to extract the absolute most potential from this car. And this is a driver that drives the Lamborghini a lot in ACC series, at least the ones on SimGrid that I could find. He is very familiar with this car. It's a car he drives quite a lot in the series that he enters. So he's perhaps got a little bit less learning to do than some of the other drivers, and that could reflect in the times that we see coming towards the end of qualifying. We know the pace is there for Popper. Again, he's about 1.1 seconds faster on this lap if he can manage to keep it between the white lines around the Parabolica. We've got Ascari to go first for him this time. We've also got Maris is out there on a lap, but that, in fact, no, that's an invalidated lap, so there will be no improvements there. DeMarchi's looking like he may be on to rival Hack for pole position time as well. He's 3/10 currently up on his best time, another little bit, another half a tenth in fact, and he is going to be right on up there into the 48.7s alongside David Hack. And where is he on the track at the moment? In the 29. He's about to come across the line now. 3.2. That is a very quick time. It is a 1:48.8. It's so close. 8/1000ths of a second separating pole position and P2.
You are not going to get much closer than that. That can only be, even around a circuit where they're going around this speed, there can only be a few centimetres if that's in it. 8/1000ths of a second, extremely close indeed. Popper shot himself then up into 9th place, gets himself in towards that top 10. Not too many drivers now towards the end of their lap, or not too many towards the end of their lap and improving at the moment. We have got Ohak out there on the circuit. We'll see what he can do in that beautiful number 13 car. Doesn't seem to be unlucky for him at the moment. Him and Demarchi just setting the pace at the moment, just able to seem, well, it just looks like they are able to just spread themselves a bit further up the field and put in some very respectable lap times indeed. Popa still finding a bit more time as well, so we'll wait and see what he can do on this next run. But it's early days, obviously, in the championship. But Ohak and Demarchi, certainly from this first qualifying run around here, just look to have a bit more pace. It's whether they're using too many tyres to do that, though, whether they're, you know, higher fuel consumption, whatever the reasons could be. Just because they're quick in qualifying, no means to say they're going to dominate in the race.
Absolutely. Qualifying and the race are two very, very different beasts. It's one thing to set a fast lap, it's another thing to be consistently fast. And that is going to be a very important thing when we come to the 1 hour race that we are bearing down upon. 5 and a bit minutes left of qualifying here. And then that 1 hour race where consistency is going to be key, because it's very well and good being 8/1000ths of a second faster than the guy in P2, but if you are, is that Ohak having a problem? It is. Ohak's had some sort of an issue there. I didn't quite catch that, but what happened there, Luke?
Standard Escavi. Just too greedy on the curve through the final part of Escavi, through turn number 10. It throws you off towards the barrier, and there's not a lot of runoff area there to save you. He'll be glad he's done that in qualifying, and not doing that in the race, and that's another thing. How hard do you push in the race as well? Is it worth going flat out all the time? Because the curbs around this circuit will certainly bite. Patrick Den now heading towards the finish line. He finds a time improvement. Not enough, though, to find any position improvement. Stays in 12th place in the number 9 car, does the German at the moment. 1.2 seconds off of pole position. 5 minutes to go. Ohak, Demarchi, Samba are your top 3 in this session. You've got Christensen, Schultz, Coltei, Wing, Melas, Popa, Brady. Only driver in the pit lane then at the moment. Marius, Den, Gabler and Volco just a bit further off the pace at the moment. All 12 drivers will score points here, so it's definitely going to be worth carrying on towards the end. Even if you do get involved in a bit of accident, even if you do have to, you know, return to garage and spend multiple minutes getting your car fixed in the pit lane, it's going to be worth fighting right up until the very end in this session. You never know what could happen.
You don't indeed, and while we were talking about that, I was just going back to see exactly what happened to David Ohak in that spin. It is just finding the limits, as you say, in Ascari. Just the tail end got away from him coming through the second apex, and that shows how easy it is, even if you are currently at least the fastest driver on the track, to make a mistake. And you do that in a 1 hour race, and that is seriously going to cost you. So let's hope we're finding that all in qualifying. Of course, it's not just a case of setting the fastest lap times, as we've seen for quite a few of the drivers. Finding the limit ahead of the race is utterly important as well, as Demarchi goes fastest of all with a 1:48.772. Well, that's a quarter of a tenth faster than Ohak's best time, with just 3 minutes to go. The pressure is now on Ohak in that number 13 car to beat that time. What is he going to be able to do in these dying grasps of qualifying? He's got 1, maybe 2 laps left in him, and they need to be fast ones if he wants to retake the top spot.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do at the moment. You can just see him heading into that first chicane then, the Rettifilia. We'll see what his times are going to be. He doesn't need to find much at the moment. A 10th of a second would be good enough to give him pole position then for this first race. The problem is, if you started at the front of Monza, you're always at the mercy in case someone behind you decides to go bowling towards the first corner. We'll see what sort of time it's looking like at the first sector at the moment. Very close to what we've seen on the previous one then from Demarchi. Ohak doing a decent job at the moment then, about 34.5 seconds through that first sector. Now making his way through the Lesbos, taking a bit of a tighter line there on the way into the Lesbo, not really using the full width of the track on the way into the corner. Clearly seems to be a line that works for him. Definitely using the full length of the track on the exit, and I'll be very surprised if that hasn't cost him some time whatsoever. Very wide there, and yeah, he is just starting to hemorrhage a bit of time now. That delta, what was staying pretty much constant, is now about 2 tenths down heading into Ascari, so it's going to need to be a mighty final few corners from David Ohak if he wants to take pole position on this lap. Who knows, he might still have enough pace, have enough fuel in that car to get another run. And yeah, I think he is pretty much aware of the fact now that he's just warming up the tyres a bit, getting them in the good condition going all out for a final assault at pole position.
He is indeed, and there's a few other drivers out there going for their final assaults as well. I can see at the moment we've got Patrick Dane is currently out and improving, and as is Taylor Brady, and Taylor Brady's finding a good chunk of time there. He was 0.4 of a second up on his best, which that might not sound like much, but given how close the field is, 0.4 of a second is going to be enough to move him all the way up to P6 if he can keep that sort of a deficit from P11. That's how tight the grid is. Every single tiny bit of time counts, and as I'm keeping one eye on Taylor Brady now, heading towards the parabolic, he's still about 0.4, just a little bit shy of 0.4 up, so we could be about to see the ERT driver making his way up onto the third row of the grid. Just the parabolica to go. Is he going to lose time? Is he going to gain any time coming out of here? In fact, he's gaining time hand over fist on the exit of the parabolic. He's now up to half a second faster, so we could be seeing him move even further up the grid as we head towards the line. It is indeed P5 for Taylor Brady then, the Irishman putting in a great lap on that occasion. 1:49.445 for him, and as I say, improvements. David O'Hack's out there again and finding more time.
Yeah, again, he's about level to what he did earlier on, and again, he's finding a bit of grass. Coming out of the second Lesbo then doesn't seem to be as costly on the throttle as it was on the previous one for him, so not too bad at the moment from O'Hack. He's going to get a bit of a, I'm sure, unintentional slipstream from one of the cars up ahead. I think that was Gabler in the number, no, sorry, that was just looking on the track map at the moment. That is Popper in the number 63 up ahead as well. He's also on a bit of a hot lap. He's realised that qualifying is over for him, so DeMarchi is unable to respond to this lap from O'Hack at the moment, and O'Hack's not really doing just quite enough. He's going to have the mightiest parabolica he has ever had in his life if he wants to take pole position. At the moment, that's about as clean as you can get in one of those Lamborghinis. And it sounds to me as if he's lifted off and realised he is not going to be able to do enough, so he will not be taking pole position. It looks like, unless we get a miracle lap from someone else, it looks like it is going to be DeMarchi who takes pole. Further back down the order, Patrick Dane finding a bit more of an improvement again as well. He was in 10th position. We'll see if he can get himself a bit further up the order. Doesn't need much to get ahead of Melez. Goes across the line in the end, just loses out a tiny bit. Gabler also finding a bit of time as well. One of the two amateur class drivers we've got in here. What can the number 26 car do? Looks like this is going to be a pretty sizable improvement for him. We'll only keep him in 13th position. And Nikolay Marius also as well finding this time. We're seeing further down the order, we are seeing a lot of improvements toward this top of the session. Not too many towards the top half, although as we say that, Brady gets himself up into 4th place. Marius comes across the line, shoots himself into the top 9. I think that is nearly it for this session. We've only got Schulz out there at the moment, and we've also got Dustin Volco heading out on the circuit. Doesn't look like they're finding enough time though, so it's going to be DeMarchi on pole position.
Well, you say they're not finding enough time. Dustin Rolko may be finding enough time to at least move himself up 1 or 2 positions on the grid. He's about second faster than his personal best on this one. He's going to be the last car across the line to round out the session. Just the parabolica to go. And a 1 second improvement is, well, he's 1.1. It's going to be close between himself and Gabler, who's going to be rounding out the grid as we round the parabolica with the number 64. Is he going to be able to improve himself from the back of the grid? Unfortunately not, but he got a damn sight closer to not being there. It is very, very close as at the back. Almost as close at the back, in fact, closer at the back of the grid than it is at the front. That's how tight the field is, up and down, and not a lot separating every single one of the drivers that we've got.
Yeah, all shaping up to be a fantastic race. Those front two then, DeMarchi and O'Hack. DeMarchi, didn't quite manage to get things right on earlier runs, but his final run was good enough. O'Hack unable to match all of that. You saw the rest of the grid orders then. It won't be long before we get this race underway, and judging by what we've seen in qualifying, it is going to be a very close race. Obviously, we don't know what strategies and all those different things are going to bring. That adds that extra element. It is a compulsory pit stop where they have to take on fuel and they have to take on tyres, which makes me think the drivers are going to be pushing quite a lot harder, because these cars generally, they can easily go 60 minutes without a pit stop. Here, they're going to have to try something different. They're going to have to think differently about this. As we said, probably just push that tiny bit more. This could be absolute chaos.
It could well be, and it'll be intriguing to see who, maybe we see some of the drivers absolutely destroy the tyres in the first stint and then maybe take it a little bit easier in pit as soon as the pit window opens. We might see some of the drivers deciding to take it easier early on and then just have that set of tyres to absolutely demolish in the later part of the race, perhaps with a bit of clean air. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Of course, we've got the pit window is a 20-minute window that will open around about the midpoint of the race. So either way, they've got a little bit of time either side where they won't be able to make a pit stop. And that will be the important part where everybody is almost on level ground, especially in the first sort of 20 minutes or so of this race. Of course, I'm expecting the pit window to open 20 minutes in and then close at the 40-minute mark with no pit stops in the final 20 minutes. So yeah, first 20 minutes, everybody's equal on tyres. Whether everybody will be equal on fuel or not will be another question. Maybe some of the drivers might go a little bit heavier on fuel to take on less when they pit. Or maybe vice versa, they might be slightly heavier on fuel at the start. In fact, lighter on fuel at the start to take on more when they pit and maybe try and get a bit of a lead in the early part of the race. There's so many different what-ifs involved in the strategy of a race, even just a 60-minute race. So there's a lot to sort of try and comprehend in this final minute before we get racing.
Yeah, there certainly is. Before that, we are going to thank, of course, all our sponsors here. We've got ERT, one of the partners of this league. They help provide some of the Go and Get Stuff award and obviously provide a lot of the drivers as well. 3M Sim Racing, another sponsor that are also involved with us here at One Hub. Mental Health Foundation, we do many various charity events for Next Level Racing, provide rigs and help also fund some of the prizes in the background. SimGrid, you've seen their logo on the stream. That is where you can find all of our streams as well and all of our leagues as well. If you want to join, Pure Sim Gear provide prizes as well to some of the drivers. And let's not forget Vespertine, who've been a big partner over the league over the last few years or so, way back from earlier seasons on the Formula 1 games. But the drivers now just lining up on the grid, are just making their final few changes. We've spoken about it already. Turn number 1. It could be carnage and it could well eliminate quite a few drivers on this race. So wouldn't be surprised if we have a bit more of a conservative turn 1 almost, just because everyone's aware of that fact that it can be a bit dangerous. Drivers now are getting us underway on the formation lap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an interesting one going into turn 1. A lot of these drivers will never have driven with each other before in any form of league racing, so not really knowing how your rivals are going to react does add that element of sort of apprehension when you get towards a corner, as infamous as Monza turn 1. What will they do? Is somebody going to try an opportunistic lunge? Is somebody going to make a mistake under the brakes? And the further up the grid you go, the more worried I think you're going to be about that. All of your work in qualifying can be undone in the click of a finger if somebody behind you makes the wrong move. So for the likes of O'Hack and Demachi, it's one thing to be quick enough to get on first and second on the grid, but they need to survive turn 1, as does everybody need to survive turn 1. So perhaps we will see some more conservative takes on the opening lap of the race, but at the same time, maybe some of the drivers are thinking, everybody's going to be a bit conservative because Monza turn 1 is a meme. It might give me opportunities to make a sneaky move up the inside into the Della Roggia chicane or into the Rettifilio, even if you're feeling super brave at the start of the race. So anything can happen. Hopefully everybody manages to keep it clean as we go into the first corner. But with 14 drivers on the grid, there is so much that can happen.
Oh yeah, certainly, and I've got to say I tend to agree with you. It wouldn't surprise me if drivers take it nice and steady around turn number 1 and then think, oh, we've survived that, and then the chaos breaks loose into the Voggia, which sometimes can be a bit of a better overtaking opportunity and a bit more of a permanent overtaking opportunity, as you have got to be brave to fight back into the Lesbos, get the move done into the Rettifilio and end up on a suboptimal line. There's always a chance for some of those cars a bit further back to get things done on a set, into the Voggia chicane and therefore get it done for the rest of the lap. Ascari is also a possibility. You've normally got to be at least already alongside if you're on the inside line, or fully ahead if you're on the outside, before you're trying to get an overtake done into that corner. Otherwise, there could be bits of contact. We've already seen in qualifying drivers get caught out over the curb. You'd hope, at least for their sake, you'd hope in the race that they are going to be a bit more conservative over the curbs, but maybe in the final few laps, maybe as a tyre starts to wear them out, maybe as a bit of mental fatigue starts to set in, that might be where we see a few more of these mistakes happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Mental fatigue is going to be another big thing. Maybe perhaps not as much as it would be should the races be longer as that more endurance style as we were touching upon earlier. But a 1 hour race, it's still quite a long time to be behind the wheel, and you need absolute focus for that entire hour, because if you don't, yeah, you're going to feel it, and just one minor sort of brain fart moment and you'll find yourself in a wall, sort of, especially coming out of corners like Ascari. We saw even O'Hack making a mistake through there in qualifying. It just shows how easy it is. One momentary slip of the mind and one moment pushing slightly too hard and your race could completely come undone. So focus is absolutely paramount now, as the drivers are going to be getting into that focus mode with just one corner to go before we go green.
Yeah, you can see now DeMarchi now backing up the pack, you know, effectual pace car, just trying to get things ready, all lining up, double file. It'll be up to him when to put the hammer down, when to get the timing right as well. Doesn't want to obviously go too early and get yourself a penalty. You don't want to go too late and give all the cars behind you a superb opportunity of getting the move done in towards turn number 1. The final of the 14 cars just making their way around the parabolic now. The last little bit of tyre warming done, and it's DeMarchi with the view that everyone had won on the run down towards this first corner. It looked like for a second he was gonna go for things. Needs to be careful that he doesn't accelerate and brake too aggressively. Could easily get himself into a bit of trouble for doing all of that one. He heads towards the line. Green flag action then, and we are underway, and I think he's just left it a tiny bit too late there, because O'Hack has got a better run on the outside line as they make their way down towards this first corner then. Who's it going to be ahead on the brakes? Is it going to be O'Hack or DeMarchi? DeMarchi's got a lot braver on the brakes there and has managed to secure that position in towards the first corner. It looks like everyone has at least made it through their first part of that. Oh, as I say that, one of the cars just going off there and finding themselves dropping towards the back of the field. Can't quite see which one that was at the moment, but it is DeMarchi in the lead then. O'Hack in second. Samba still in, I think December still in, no it's not, I don't think it's, oh, someone's gone straight on there. Someone has gone things straight on. It is still DeMarchi leading. It was Brady in third place, but completely getting it wrong at the Roger chicane, giving that move straight back towards Samba.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think Corsa, the commentator, came in then just as you were about to say. Everybody makes it through Monza T1 safely. We see a bit of sideways action. Julian Schultz bears the brunt of the backwards momentum there and drops himself down into 13. And then we saw, as you were saying, Taylor Brady making that mistake into the second chicane and losing a position to Nathan Samba as well. But in the lead, it looks like those two are starting to run away with it a little bit. You can see the gap building behind O'Hack already, and I think DeMarchi was saved a little bit at the start of the race by the fact that pole is on the right-hand side of the track, because yes, he got away slightly slower than O'Hack did. Didn't react as well to crossing the line, perhaps, as O'Hack did, but he had the inside line for the first part of the chicane, and that proved crucial to him as he made his way into that first corner in maintaining that lead. But now, is he going to be able to maintain the lead as we head around to conclude lap 1? O'Hack is bearing down on him, just half a second behind, as we're seeing a little bit of movement in the back part of the grid as well. We've got Dane and Gabler getting very close. Melees is right on the back of Gabler as well as we head down towards turn 1. I'm going to keep half an eye on the lead as we head down there. Everybody is on this main straight at once. It's hard to keep an eye on everything that's going on. Battle for the lead is staying as it is for the time being, but Gabler is coming under a lot of pressure from Melees, who's diving up the inside into the first corner. Is he going to make it stick? Schultz is looking for the opportunistic dive as well there and slides his car right the way past Gabler. 2 positions in one corner there lost for Gabler, but Gabler is still fighting with Schultz, who made a mistake on the exit of the second part of the corner, and now they're going side by side through the Curva Grande with Volco bearing down on them as well. Yeah, Volco's got a perfect view here. That all started with Gabler trying to make a move round the outside into Ascari on Dane. Didn't work for him, and he ended up dropping down the order, but all just sort of settles down now as, I think that's another mistake from Schultz. He's really struggling at the start of this race. Obviously got involved in that first incident, and he now drops towards the back of the field. He is now down in last place. At the front of the order though, DeMarchi and O'Hack definitely breaking away in these early stages, definitely just trying to escape at the moment and enjoying their battles. And they can, if they're clever, they can work together here. They can build up that bit of a gap in this first stint. I don't think we'll be seeing too much teamwork between them as we get into the latter stages of this race. But for now, it might be a sensible thing just to, not attack each other at any silly points, build that bit of a gap, and knowing that you're probably going to secure yourself a top 2 finish if you can do so. Yeah, absolutely. But by the look of O'Hack on this lap, he's been pulling DeMarchi in little by little throughout the lap, and looks like that gap is slowly coming down as we head out the Parabolica as well. Did he get a bit of drive when he managed to get the power down there? The gap's not really moving, but with the slipstream now, Hax sets the fastest lap of the race so far, 49.2, which was a tenth quicker than DeMarchi managed on the previous go round Monza. It's not going to be quick enough to get past him this lap, but it's definitely quick enough to signal intent to DeMarchi, who looks like he was a little bit better on the brakes there actually, so reacting well to that as Samba gets it wrong on the brakes. We've got the number 12s gone round. That's Taylor Brady. He's had a moment going into the first chicane and he is hemorrhaging positions. He was doing quite well at the start of this. He was quite high up the order. You can see him part there on the apex of the corner. He is, well, he's not moving for the time being. Is something broken on that Lamborghini? Is something broken on the rig? I do hope not, as he's returned to the pits now. And could that be race over for Taylor Brady, who was doing so well early on and through qualifying, and that would be a real shame this early in the race.
Yeah, he was battling pretty closely with Klaus Christensen then. Both obviously involved in ERT as they were heading towards the line, so I'm not sure if something's happened with him. Another one of the Lamborghinis has had a bit of an issue at the moment, as down the inside there goes Marius on Popa. The number 65 and the 63 car were battling side by side, and the two camoed bulls heading their way now down towards Ascari, and you've got a fantastic battle going off behind them as well. Popa on the, well, he was on the outside line, well, he was on the inside line there, but was able to retake the racing line as, oh, just gets a little bit of a wobble on there. Under braking, has to head over the curb, and thankfully for him, avoids any damage, but that is just going to allow so many of the cars through him. This midfield battle proving to be tightly contested at the moment, as you've now got Coltei and Daniel Wing battling side by side. Coltei on the outside, Wing has got that inside line heading in towards Parabolica, and Wing is able to hold on towards 7th place for now. And all this battling, as you can see, Popa was right in, you know, he's just ahead of these guys at the moment. All this battling is just allowing drivers to streak away up the field.
Absolutely is, but from a driver's standpoint, that's going to be pretty bad, seeing your rivals tear off into the distance. But from a spectator standpoint, this is incredible racing. Is Coltei lining up Daniel Wing again, but not quite close enough to get the move done. And I know there are some, at least one Daniel Wing supporter in the chat who will be whooping and hollering at that move. It was a very nice move indeed up the inside of the Parabolic, and now he's lining up Marius on this lap, but he needs to be careful, as we've seen from Popa. One mistake and you can lose 3, 4, 5 positions in a single corner. But I feel like these guys are going to be very close throughout this race. They're all within a second of the car in front, and usually in sort of like the Formula 1 you think, oh, this is a DRS train, but in GTs it's a completely different kettle of fish, and 1 second between everybody isn't going to make a huge difference, aside from giving us some great racing. As now we're seeing Marius going a bit wide through the first Lesmo. Danny Wing lining up along the inside, wasn't quite close enough to get alongside, but he's a lot closer now as we head down the back straight towards Ascari. A little bit of a wiggle for Coltei behind as well, but he is sniffing around the rear wing of that white and black striped Lamborghini down towards Ascari. Who's going to be going alongside who? Coltei creeping all over the back of Daniel Wing at the moment, but nobody going side by side through Ascari this time, perhaps deciding it's a bit too risky at this phase of the race to try anything ambitious through there. But it is so close, as Marius and Coltei both going wide on the exit of Ascari. And now look at that, Coltei going wide has allowed Dane to pull alongside him. We've got Popa pulling alongside Mellors as well. It's 2 by 2 as we head down towards the Parabolica this time around. Dane gets ahead of Coltei. Who's going to get ahead? Is it Mellors staying ahead just about of Popa for now, but we've got another run down to turn 1, and these guys are very close together.
Yeah, fighting extremely hard towards the midfield. They're fighting hard towards the front as well. O'Hack's got that gap back to within about just under, well, just over, I should say, a quarter of a second. Here comes Popa then on the back of Mellors, who's going to have to go defensive in that brown Lamborghini. Can Popa make it all the way around the outside? This would be a fantastic move if he's able to pull it off. Oh no, Mellors wide to that one. Won't take a tighter line, so not all is lost for the Romanian. Car number 63 then, the Pro Class driver, not able to really get the exit I think he would have wanted there. I've said it a few times, there's been so much battling already going on the midfield action. Marius and Wing just trying to escape at the moment, but the gap between Christensen and Marius, been racing less than 10 minutes, so that's very deep from the number 65 car. And this might just give Wing a bit of an opportunity, and that's what we're seeing. As soon as the driver builds up a bit of a gap, just snatching a break, making the tiniest of mistakes, and it's bringing them back into the play with the rest of this midfield, and no one no one seems to be able to get away consistently. The front 4 drivers have just escaped up the field by the tune of nearly 7 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were saying earlier on about Demacia and Hack pulling away. They've not pulled away perhaps as quick as they might like to from Nathan Samba. And Christensen being dragged along with them. But then as we've got this fight, as you were saying, a good 7 seconds back. But look at that, Marius having a bit of an off moment through Ascari there, as well as the 63's gone round and the 69, I think. So that's Popa's into the wall through Ascari. Let's see what's just happened to him. I'm going to keep an eye on it. He's just got it wrong under braking, and he's gone into the back of Melee's as well and taken him with him. Both cars winding up into the wall through Ascari. That is not what you want to see 10 minutes into a 1 hour race, but that is definitely Popa's race over Melee's. I think he's going to be struggling as well with the damage that he received. Yeah, you can see on the front of that Lamborghini, he took the brunt of the hit onto the wall, and that is devastating for what was turning out to be a brilliant 4-car battle that we were seeing. It's still going to be a 4-car battle. In fact, as I switch back, Coltei alongside the inside of Dane, who's getting boxed in a little bit by Daniel Wing, and that could allow Coltei around, but he's going to have the outside line for the second part of the chicane. Is he going to be able to hang it out around there? No, not for the time being. In fact, I think that will have slowed him down on the throttle as well and allow Dane to just stay ahead of him for the time being, but it's all kicking off here with 10 minutes gone already.
Yeah, we did just catch that replay there, but unfortunately Popa going into the back of Melees, so, you know, Melees is in the pits. He's going to have quite substantial damage, and I think Popa trying to make his way around as well. But Marius just trying to break away a bit in this 5th place battle. I don't feel like we've spoken about the leaders for a while, and you can see there they are, Demacia now with about a 1 second gap over Ohak. Ohak just have quite a fight. So I do apologise. Things have swapped round. Ohak has managed to take the lead in this race then. At some point, unless... no, my screen was lying to me then for a second. Ohak is still in 2nd place. Demacia in the lead. Samba 2nd. Christensen in 4th. And then the battle we've spoken so much about. Marius now seeming like he is able to break away a bit. And Wing was hoping that he could be in that same situation, because Dane is really still keeping him under the cosh, keeping him under pressure. We've seen just how easy it is to get things wrong. Just if you get caught out by the car in front, maybe braking, you know, 5-10 metres earlier than what they expected. If you just lose your braking zone and brake 5 or 10 metres later than what everyone else expects, it can end up in big consequences, and that's certainly been the case for Melees in the 69 and Popa in the 63, as Dane's gone a bit wide there, and I wonder whether that's going to give Coltei a bit of an opportunity, just too far back on this occasion to really take advantage of that one. We've still got about 80% of this race to go, 48 minutes and 40 seconds. Demacia, Ohak, Samba, the top 3, as they were from the start of the race.
Dane looked like he's using that wider line to slingshot almost. I don't think it quite worked out for him, but I've been watching Dane's style through this previous lap. He's been driving in Daniel Wing's mirrors this entire previous lap. He's just been pulling alongside, making sure that Wing knows he's there, and I think he was trying a bit of a slingshot with a wider line in, and then just to get on the power earlier and get a bit more exit momentum on that Lamborghini down towards turn 1. Didn't quite work, but he closed that gap up substantially down the main straight, and he's right back on the rear wing of Daniel Wing as we head through the Della Roger chicane, and once again applying the pressure. Marius is trying to run away from this, but not quite able to just yet. And in fact, has he made a mistake going into the first Les mode? Because it looks like Wing's a little bit closer than he just was now. So this is turning into a 3-car battle as we head down towards Ascari once more. And we're on lap 7 of this race now, and I feel like we've had just so much action already for 7 laps of racing. It's absolutely insane. It's not going to stop. Dane still just trying to find a way through, and look at Wing, making a mistake there, and it's side by side. They bash wheels, and Dane is into the wall through Ascari. He was looking for the opportunistic move. We saw Wing just got it a little bit wrong, trying to get into the mirrors of Marius, and Dane trying to slot that Lamborghini into a gap that was, unfortunately for him, always going to close. And a little bit of a wheel bang, and Dane is into the wall and now losing positions to Gabler. And how much damage did he sustain? He didn't hit the wall super hard, but you have to feel there's going to be some damage there.
Yeah, that bonnet definitely not looking as attached as it was not so long ago on the number 9 car. So Dane did watch the replay. The gap was certainly there on the inside, but I think it was always going to close, and I'm not sure whether at this point of the race that was the smartest decision. And yeah, Patrick Dane having to come into the pits. Now, because this is obviously outside the mandatory pit stop window, this is going to have to be a bit of an extra one. So whether you choose to change the tyres, whether you choose to put any fuel in, I doubt we're going to see anyone doing that, but that is Dane dropping down the order. Melis and Popa have thankfully been able to head their way back out onto the circuit. They are a couple of laps down at the moment, and Brady is still in the pits. I have a funny feeling we have seen the last of him. What that has done has allowed Mavius to just break away that tiny little bit, and I was surprised Coltei wasn't able to take a bit more advantage of that contact. And if anything, he's now started to suffer under some pressure from Schultz. Although last lap around, Coltei and Schultz were about a second faster than the 2-4-3 car, who... That's sort of the issue you've got in this situation. I always find it, if you're in the middle of the train, you can't really afford to go for a bit of a dive bomb move, or, you know, just break that a little bit later and try something different, because if you get it wrong, you've seen there, you're putting yourself under massive pressure from the car behind.
Yeah, I think that might not be a fully representative thing, as of course we saw the contact happen in the last lap with Dane on Danny Wing after he made that mistake already. And speaking of mistakes, Schultz losing it there and just about managing to keep it pointing in the right direction, but he does have to take to the escape part of Ascari, and that will lose him a little bit of time. But yeah, I think Danny Wing did lose a lot of time from that contact. He kept the car going, but he lost a lot of momentum going through the mid part of Ascari, on top of what he was already going to lose from the mistake. So while that gap did close, and while they were a second lap faster on the previous lap, I think Daniel Wing might just have to pace. Though saying that, Coltei has closed in even more, so just proving me wrong as we head down towards the first corner. Half a second, the gap now closing as Coltei uses the slipstream to pull himself ever closer in that purple Lamborghini, but not close enough to get a move just yet. But when Danny Wing thought that the pressure might have been off with Dane dropping out from behind him, Coltei's there to pick up the slack, and now it'll be him that's driving in the mirrors. As I can see, somebody's demolished one of the boards at turn 1, and there's bits of polystyrene everywhere, but everybody navigating through that nice and easily. Round the Curva Grande we go, and the gap staying about the same for Coltei at the moment, so first sector perhaps not where he's going to make up the time if he wants to get the move done on Daniel Wing. But there is still 2 more sectors to go, and we've seen a little bit of a difference as we saw in qualifying earlier on. Some of the drivers seemingly preferring the first sector to the second or the third, and that could pay dividends through the race as well if you're faster through sector 1 and you can just about get past and then keep the other driver behind into the middle and the final sectors. That could work out, and likewise as well, if you're slightly slower through the second sector, you can catch up in the mid sector and then overtake through the last. There's plenty of different ways this could go still, and Coltei will just be biding his time, I think, for now. He's seen plenty of drama around him so far this race, it's safe to say, and we'll be counting his chickens that he's still all in one piece. And I'm not expecting to see anything overly dramatic from him anytime soon.
No, I'm not either, and I wonder if that, you know, just what we were talking about earlier, just playing it a bit safer in the first part of the race, letting other drivers make the mistakes, and then maybe once you've got yourself a bit more free air, you might be able to push extremely hard. I wonder if the polystyrene we saw flying was because Mavius has got it a bit wrong at turn number 1 and not quite gone slow enough to ignore the advantage you take, because that was his fastest lap of the race on the previous one. And you'll notice next to his name, he has got a drive-through penalty, and the gap between him and Wing did seem to extend a bit on that lap. So it looks like Nikolai Mavius might have been off track somewhere at some point. We'll try and get it confirmed what that was for, but he does have a drive-through penalty, and that is going to put him a long, long way down the order. It's a very, very long pit lane here at Monza in these cars. Quite a slow pit lane speed limit as well, obviously slower than what we used to see him in Formula 1. So Mavius will drop behind Wing, he'll drop behind Coltei and Schultz, probably drop behind Gabler and Volco as well, putting him down towards 10th place. But still an opportunity to get some pretty decent points from in this race. You've got this battling continue into brew in the middle of the field, and also in the lead of this race, Riccardo Namarchi just trying to spread that gap a bit more between himself and Ohak. It seems to alter just a tenth or two every lap, and now it's the number 29 car with a 1.2 second lead.
It is indeed a little bit of breathing space for Riccardo Damarchi then, but we are, if my calculations are correct, 2 minutes away from the opening of the pit window, so that could be when we start to see some big changes coming in as well. And yeah, just back on the subject of that drive-through penalty, it's not going to be the end of the world for Marius, as perhaps it may be if you were driving something like Formula 1, because we see so much chaos going on in this race already. You could take a drive-through and come out in 9th, 10th, 11th position and still somehow finish in the points because of everything else that goes on. Strategy could play your way, as well if you get that dead right, as Coltei is once again lining up Daniel Wing. He's brought that gap back down again to half a second, and we'll see if he's able to do anything just yet. 1.5 minutes to the pit window as the number 65 car, that's Marius, is coming in for the drive-through penalty then. So he is now falling down the order as he serves that penalty. That does free up Daniel Wing into P5 and Coltei into P6. And Coltei is going to be wanting that P5. He's getting ever closer as we head down towards the first corner, but just not quite close enough to get the move done yet. As I'm just keeping one eye on what's going on out front. I believe another little spanner in the works is about to appear as Riccardo De Marchi is coming up on some traffic. He's got Popa just up the road going through Lesmo 2 right now, and that could be important if any small amount of blocking, even for a moment, could bring O'Hack back into this.
Yeah, it could do, although if O'Hack goes through the first Lesmo, a bit like he did then with all 4 wheels on the grass, that he's just going to drop him down, and that's a tiny bit more. We've said almost identical times on the last lap between them. A tenth faster was De Marchi, and Samba and Christensen in their little battle as well for 3rd and 4th. That's happening. The gap between them at the moment is 3.3 seconds, 17 thousandths separating Samba and Christensen. So Verdane not too far off, putting some decent pace for the podium. We'll see if Popa does get well out of the way.
Sorry to interrupt you. Coltei's going around the outside of Daniel Wing into Ascari there, and he's not going to be able to get the move done. Daniel Wing blocked him off. Sorry to interrupt you there, but that move's been brewing for quite some time, and it was so close to ending in tears with Daniel Wing shutting the door on Coltei as they headed towards the corner, but that robust defence paying off. Everybody's through there in one piece, and Coltei still sitting behind Wing for the time being.
Yes, very close between them. I wonder if you'd think about making a move with some strategical decisions, because Pitt's top window is open. You can just see it towards the top. It is going to be open for 20 minutes for everyone to make their one compulsory pit stop in this race, and I think perhaps unsurprisingly, no one wanting to go for it too early on. There's plenty of life in these tyres. Why not burn a bit more fuel? But you do have to go for things later on in this race. But Wing able to defend quite robustly from Coltei, holding on to that position. They're fighting themselves for the top 5. Everyone who finishes this race at the moment, it looks like will get the points with Dane and Brady in the pits. I don't think we're going to be seeing any more of them today, unfortunately. And that was a good lap from De Marchi back towards the front of the field. He managed to pull out half a second on that previous lap from O'Hack, who did just have that one little mistake, and that's sometimes all it takes. He has one tiny moment, falls a bit further back from the slipstream, and it's a tiny bit harder to just stay in contact. And he might be relying on Popa just holding De Marchi up at the moment, because getting past a lapped car, certainly not as easy as this, as you would see in a series like Formula 1, where if you don't dive out the way pretty much instantly, you will get yourself a penalty. In GT racing, in endurance racing, the onus is on a lot more on the car that is making the overtake manoeuvre and putting a lap on the opposition to make the move cleanly.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and as you say, that lap traffic coming in. But I was just thinking as well, we saw O'Hack make that mistake, which at least from the opening part of this race and through qualifying seemed somewhat uncharacteristic of O'Hack. So I'm wondering if that could be a sign that perhaps he's starting to lose a little bit of life in the tyres. Maybe he's taken a little bit too much out of them in the early phase of this race. So could we be seeing O'Hack coming in a little bit earlier, maybe trying something different on the strategy to De Marchi, and trying to get past him that way, or at least close the gap back up that way later on as the pit window opens. But one thing we are seeing getting close right now is Coltei, who is right on the back of Daniel Wing as we head down towards the first corner. Once again, Wing holding the inside line, forcing Coltei round to the outside. They're side by side as we enter the braking zone, but Coltei's much better on the brakes. Is he? No, not really, because he didn't stop in time and has to take to the escape route, and a good opportunity going awry for him there, and with that loss of momentum coming off the corner as well. Could be coming under pressure from Schultz as we head through the Curva Grande. Now he was driving, looking through his windscreen into the first corner. Coming out of it, he's going to be having to keep one eye on his mirrors as Schultz is gaining on it at quite a rate of knots. Down towards the Della Roggia we go. Is Schultz going to make a move, or is he going to bide his time for now? He's getting very close. Is that a little bit of contact almost between the two of them? Schultz just a little bit later on the brakes. Almost looked like he was pushing Coltei through the corner, but they stay in single file for now. And Coltei has to lick his wounds and try and build himself back up for another move.
Yes, and that all started with Wing just getting a bit sideways coming out of the exit of the Alboreto Parabolica. That gave Coltei the opportunity. It looked like I was wondering when I saw how quickly he was able to pull away in that braking zone, whether he had gone too deep on the brakes. Did do that. Luckily for him, managed to stay ahead of Schultz, but you do wonder whether Julian Schultz is having quite a good race at the moment now, recovering from, you know, issues at the first part where things just didn't seem to be going well for him, unfortunately. Seems to be doing cleaner now in 7th place. Just seems to have had that bit of a recovery drive. And yeah, the gaps at the front are just extending again. Once again, Demarchi about half a second faster, well, 3/10 faster on that lap than O'Hack, who was just starting to be reeled in by Nathan Samba, the Belgian driver, the number 97. So this could be an opportunity for Samba, maybe just to play something in the pit stops, try something a bit different, and get himself 2nd place in this race, when it looked like for all the world at the early stages, as Popper has now been lapped by the top 3, looked for all the world in the early stages, as this was going to be straightforward for Demarchi and Onik to finish as the first 2.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're seeing now as well the first of the pit stops coming in. Coltei, perhaps getting a little bit tired of these wheels that he's got on there, is going to put a new set on at the end of his stint, and he is the first of the drivers to make their mandatory stop in this race then. And I was wondering if he might come in soon as well, because we saw him making a bit of a mistake through the parabolica, and that did lose him the position to Schultz, and he dived immediately into the pits. So becoming the first driver to come in at the 25-minute mark of this race. So he's got 35 minutes to do on those tyres. I imagine we'll probably see a few drivers coming in around about 5 minutes time, sort of split the race 50-50, then they don't need to worry about driving either harder or softer on the tyres. But for now, Riccardo Demarchi is still winning in 2.9 seconds. The gap now really gets stretching that advantage. Left lap 3/10 quicker than O'Hack. But as you say, Samba is gaining on these guys now. Did they take too much out of the tyres early on? Was Samba just biding his time perhaps to maybe take a longer stint and bring himself into it as the race comes to a close? We're going to find out, as we've still got some time left on the pit window, about 14 minutes left on the pit window in fact, so all the strategy will unfold over the next 15 or so minutes, and we'll see who comes out on top.
Yeah, it does look as though, as this stint has gone on, that Demarchi has got the pace over O'Hack. Christensen, now that he's started to lose a bit more on his tyres, he's coming to the pits. Hopefully he has a cleaner pit stop than Coltei. But number 21 has got a 30-second stop-go penalty. That is going to drop him, obviously, a long way behind Schultz and Wing in that battles he was in. Probably back to where Marius was after his drive-through penalty as well. An absolute nightmare for Coltei. And just the reason why some of these, you know, why we've seen drivers like Mellors and Popper, despite their incident early on, they're carrying on. You never know what penalties some of the others are going to get, and never know how you're going to be able to take advantage. I'm just trying to work out from the best times in previous laps who's done a good job on their tyres at the moment. And Daniel Wing's previous lap was only half a cent slower than his best. I think confirming what we said earlier on, these drivers, if they wanted to, could probably do the entire race distance on this set of tyres if they were being a bit more careful. In a 60-minute race though with a compulsory pit stop, you might as well go for things a bit more. Than Wing now in 4th place because of the pit stop for Christensen. Looks like, as long as he keeps it clean, that he's got a good opportunity of getting a top 5 again. Just going a bit deep into the Lesbos there. Just get these little indications every now and then that because of how hard the drivers have been pushing in the early stages, that the tyres are just starting to overheat, starting to struggle. We've seen Christensen and Coltei go for an early pit stop. I wonder whether we'll see any go towards the end of the pit window, maybe with only 25 minutes, maybe even less of this race to go.
It is a possibility. I know from my experience from doing these races before, you do tend to see quite a lot of the drivers split the race 50-50 because it's just the easiest way to do it. But there may be some differences. We've already seen a few drivers pitting a little bit earlier than that, and I imagine we'll see a few pitting a little bit later as well. It'll be interesting to see if any of the leaders decide to do that. Whether the likes of Demarchi or Hack want to try and go long and just stretch these tyres as much as possible to destroy them in the final 20 or so minutes of the race, just to try and pull out as best they can from everybody else. But Samba's bearing down on them, so the pressure to make that decision is going to be building and building.
Yeah, definitely.
I was about to say, as Samba was quicker than the both of them on the last lap.
Yeah, it took the words straight out of my mouth. Nearly his personal best fastest lap of the race, but the first time we've seen Samba be quicker than both Demarchi and O'Hack. He's got that gap down towards 1.5 seconds to the number 13 car, and to the race leader, it is just over 5 seconds at the moment. So Samba starting to come into things. One of the more experienced racers here in the field in terms of One Hub ACC as well. Finished 5th in the GT3 category in Season 3 on the PlayStation, which was split between GT3 and GT4 cars. So yeah, definitely an opportunity for Samba to maybe just show that he's got some severe pace here on the PC platform. He's a silver class driver. That might be more down to how often he's actually raced in different servers, rather down to his pace. I think we can see at the moment, if he wanted to put the effort in, he'd certainly be one heading towards the pro class. Coltei has served his stop-go penalty. He has now come back out onto the circuit, and he is, down in 10th place, and I can't see him boosting up too much more than that after he has sorted out all of the pit stops have sorted out for the other drivers. But it is DeMarchi still leading this race at the end of lap number 16. We'll see what the gap has stretched to now in between himself and O'Hack, whether it's stretched at all on that lap. And that time around, O'Hack just a tenth slower than DeMarchi, and Samba just a tiny bit slower as well. Whether this is just this phase of the race, whether DeMarchi's feeling more comfortable now, whether we'll see this in the second stint, we don't know. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how things go. But we're nearly at the halfway point, and DeMarchi looking a lot more comfortable than he was on the run down towards turn 1 on lap 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Nearly 4 seconds the gap now. Plenty of breathing room for DeMarchi at the moment. I'm just trying to keep one eye on the times and see how they're all doing. Whether it is just a matter of finding that consistency at this point in the lap times. A tiny little error here, getting on the power, causing that difference, because it is just 2/10 separating the top 3 in terms of lap time last time around, or whether it was DeMarchi and O'Hack responding to Samba's sudden flurry of pace that he's put in on these previous few laps. We've had, the leaders now have all completed 16 laps of this race, so they've had plenty of time to settle in as Schultz is into the pits from what was, I believe, 5th position. So he's making his mandatory pit stop in the number 96 car. As we head towards Ascari, the gaps between the top 3 staying roughly what they were. So for the moment, it looks like they are matched pretty damn evenly on pace. We'll see what the lap times are when they cross the line, see if that matches up with the theory. And it is going to be a case, I feel like, of who is going to jump first out of these 3. We've hit the halfway point now, so realistically, most drivers are going to be coming into the pits. As we've got Popa has gone around by the look of it, coming through Ascari. And he's managed to keep it going again, but there is definite damage on that car. Yep, it's through, looking at the replay, through the second part of Ascari. In fact, no, through the final part of Ascari. The back's gotten away from him. He's hit the wall on the left side and destroyed the front of that Lamborghini. And I'm looking at the replay of what's going on there. Samba is the first one to bite of the top 3 to come in for that mandatory pit stop then. So he destroyed his tyres in the final part of this opening stint, and now he's the first one to come in and put on a new set for the second stint.
Yeah, Samba coming on, putting on a new set of tyres, whether that's a bit of a response to Klaus Christensen as well, who served his pit stop in this race and was previously the highest car to have completed a pit stop. He's come out well ahead of Schultz, and you can see, obviously, with all of the chaos that's happening, as that's Coltei getting very close with a car there. That is Coltei getting very close with the number 26 of Gabler, who is now just being lapped by. Shows how, one slight mistake, how easily things can go wrong. And Coltei, I think, just trying to prove that he has got some severe pace in this race, and just trying to prove that he can have a bit of fun. Down the inside he's going to go. This is not for position, of course, and I imagine this is going to be frustrating Jason Gabler a tiny bit, but down the inside goes Coltei, and it's identical to the move that he pulled off on Daniel Wing earlier, with an identical result. A bit too hot into the chicane. Coltei goes straight on. Thankfully for him, no damage done. Thankfully, he is able to stay in that 10th position, as Samba has now made his way out of the pits, and Christensen not really been able to go and close that gap too much, which I think is what we expected. We're not expecting undercuts, overcuts to be particularly powerful in this race, and indeed across this series.
No, absolutely not. It's very different in terms of that sort of style compared to Formula One, where there's not really different tyre choices other than are they old or are they new. So the overcut, undercut, not really going to make a massive difference in that respect, unless you're talking pit timings, how much fuel you're taking on, so on and so forth. And that's when you start getting into the real complex bits of strategy. But I'm just keeping an eye on what's going on with Coltei. If I was Gabler right now, I'd be pretty spooked. Thinking, I've lapped this guy, what's happening here? Of course, Coltei, well, within his rights to unlap himself if he's got the pace to. But he's been a bit airy trying to do it so far. So Gabler maybe thinking this is a bit spooky for the time being. The side-by-side, once again, Coltei desperate to try and unlap himself at the moment. From Gabler down towards the Parabolica. I don't think Gabler's going to fight this at all, because he knows it's not for position, and indeed he doesn't. Just lets Coltei through. Possibly the wise move there, as it does leave Coltei free to run away, and Gabler safe to continue in P4. Of course, it shows the difference in times compared to the top three. I've just seen the gap from Gabler back to Daniel Wing. And yeah, that's a mad amount of time. Neither of them have made a pit stop, but it's 29 seconds from third place to third, which just shows the pace that the top four guys have.
Yeah, they've absolutely gone in this race to those top four drivers, and Wing obviously quite a long way ahead of Gabler, and he needs to be careful here. He's let Coltei go, let him just have his own little bit of fun in this race, but all of a sudden, you can see here, on board with Nikolai Marius, who's recovering from that pit lane, from that drive-through penalty earlier for what we believe was a mistake through the Vetafilio. He's got that gap down to almost within a second, and Gabler just runs a bit wide through the first Lesmo. Thankfully for him, keeps it on the grey stuff, but you can really see that Gabler is starting to struggle with that car. This could be a perfect opportunity for Marius to get the move done. Is he going to be brave enough into Ascavi? It looks like he might be, just a bit too far back. Is Gabler going to cover off the inside line here, or is he just going to give Marius a sneaky bit of an inkling? That's an opportunity down the inside then. Marius thinks about it, decides discretion is the better part of valor now, and just sticks in that position. But he's certainly got more pace than Gabler at the moment, and if he doesn't get the move done soon, I think he'll be coming into the pits to give himself that bit of free air. Daniel Wing now, he's into the pits from what was a third place. We'll expect him obviously to drop down towards fifth, or possibly even sixth place once all of the pit stops have sorted themselves out. Gabler still trying to defend. He's just not got any front end grip in that Lamborghini, and Marius says thank you very much, I'll take fourth place. And unsurprisingly, the number 26 enters the pits.
Yeah, I was wondering how he's going to lose a little bit more time there than perhaps he would have wanted, because he had to get on the brakes a little bit earlier to let Marius through. Whereas most of the drivers will just come off the Parabolica, dive on the anchors and sling it into their pit limiter. Whereas, yeah, Marius almost like blocked his entry there, not on purpose, of course, because he was trying to make the move up the inside, but it did mean that Gabler in that 26 just had to slow down a little bit earlier, and that will allow a little bit of breathing room for Marius, as long as he gets a mistake-free sort of next few laps and in-lap and pit stop and everything. It might give him a bit more extra breathing room when he does make his stop as well. As we're seeing, how many drivers now do we need to make a stop? The top three are yet to make their stop. In fact, saying that, O'Hack is into the pits on this lap. So he is the next of the top three to dive in. And looking at the gaps, that should bring him out. Where is that going to bring him out? In fact, that's going to be close, I think. Bringing him out around about Samba. Samba's been going relatively quickly on his outlaps by the look of it. So yeah, Samba could be in with a shout of getting past O'Hack if O'Hack doesn't have the best pit stop here. It's going to be mighty close as he comes out of the pit lane, and we'll have to wait to see how that unfolds. And when is Demarchi going to come in as well? Of course, he's now got a massive lead out front, but he is still yet to make a pit stop, as is Marius, sitting in P3.
Yeah, those drivers still staying out there. You'd expect O'Hack to come out behind Marius at the moment. It is all going to be about where he is with Samba. O'Hack, I think, is just now starting to get fired up again and exit the pit lane. In fact, Marius has come into the pit, so O'Hack, I think, should retain second place at the moment. He is just heading out of the pit road now, starting to get back up towards pace, and Samba, he's obviously going a lot faster, but he's a long way back. So O'Hack has managed to hold on towards second place then in this race. Samba still in that net third, Christensen still in the net fourth, and we'll see where Marius comes out, because as we saw earlier on, he was looking pretty comfortable in 5th place earlier before he made that mistake, before he got that drive-through penalty. I still would not write off Marius for finishing in 5th place in this race, which would be a supreme performance, considering all that has gone on. And the only driver that is yet to pit, as I say that, well, he had no choice. He wouldn't have made it round in time if he'd have gone any longer. Demarchi leaving it late then, but the race leader, the Italian, comes into the pits and should comfortably retain his lead. We'll just see whether he can hold on to it, though, for the final third.
Yeah, you have to think he probably will, given that he's only got 20 minutes to absolutely demolish a set of tyres. He can drive all of the rubber off those wheels in 20 minutes if he so wishes to keep himself in the lead, and it's definitely Demarchi's race to lose at this point. But how good was O'Hack's outlap? Can he bring any time down on that fresh set of wheels on his Lamborghini in the number 13 car? We're just watching him come through Ascari right now, and it's all looking very neat and tidy for him right now. With the number 29, that is Demarchi's, not moving just yet out of his pit box. In fact, now he's just starting to get moving as O'Hack makes his way into the Parabolica, so it should be comfortably still in the lead for Demarchi, and everything stays as it is for the time being. And Demarchi now looking pretty comfortable for this final third of the race.
I don't think it's going to be as comfortable as it was earlier on. His in-lap was about a second and a half slower than O'Hack's in-lap. So, yes, he's still retained the lead in this race, but O'Hack might just have a bit of confidence. He's got the heat into these tyres now. He's just got a bit of a feeling where things are, and that gap certainly looks to be closer to the 2-second point than it was. You know, we were starting to head towards 4 seconds when Demarchi came into the pit, so maybe all is not lost for O'Hack, as we get that little message there from the base direction that the pit window is now closed, and thankfully everyone that is still remaining in this race has served their one compulsory pit stop. And yeah, the lead now between Demarchi and O'Hack is 2 seconds. You should see Samba just popping by in the background. He's lost out, if anything, in this pit stop period. Marius, after his stop, has come out in 7th place. He's got a long way to catch up to Daniel Wing. We'll see if he's got the pace to do so, but 7th place, still not a bad recovery after the issues that he had earlier on. And fair play to some of these other drivers as well, Coltei, Mellis and Popa, especially Popa. He seems to have had all sorts of issues, although saying that, I'm not sure whether that last incident actually was it for him and whether he's had to call it a day, unfortunately. But Mellis still driving around there in 11th place, knowing that he's picking up 2 points, and that could be a very important 2 points in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely could. We touched upon it earlier on with this season only being 3 races long. Every single point counts, and yeah, even just finishing the race, even if you've only got 3 wheels on your car and you finish in 12th, you're still going to get some points. Yeah, well, a point in this one. So I wonder if we may see in the later point of the race maybe Popa coming out just to drive around and get a point. I don't know whether the classification will give him one for finishing 12th in the pits. I'll have to double check that one with the admins in a little bit of time. But for now at least, Popa is still 12th and will pick up a point if he does pick one up. But keeping an eye on the gap to the lead, it's slowly coming down. You may have been right there. O'Hack brought the gap down below 2 seconds now at the start of this lap. So yeah, maybe Demarchi not as comfortable for the time being. Will he be able to bring the tyres up in time for a defence from O'Hack? Will O'Hack be able to find the pace? Of course, it's been very, very close between these two from qualifying all the way through to this 2/3 distance point of the race. It's going to come down to the wire if they get super, super close. And I think we're starting to see the drivers settling in a little bit more now, finding themselves some clean air and time to just sort of get into a rhythm and make sure they finish this race with all the chaos of the first stint out of the way.
Yeah, everything seems to be sort of gapping out at the moment and just settling things down. Gabler did drop behind Marius, and you'd expect, judging by the first stints, that Marius is going to have the pace. One that could be something to watch for. Coltei is a lot quicker than the number 64 car of Volco at the moment. So, Dustin Volco versus Mark Coltei. Mark, the Hungarian man, obviously known as Scorpion Horn, I think to a lot of people, will have seen One Hub F1 side of things on the PlayStation in previous seasons, trying to recover after that 30-second stop-go penalty, and himself and, to be honest, Nicolai Marius must be absolutely kicking themselves after their penalties, because they know they had an opportunity for some big, big points in this race. They're still going to get some, still going to be better than what some of their rivals have managed, but not what they would have expected in the early swing of things. And you can see Coltei has really closed that gap now. He's got it within 0.8 of a second. Not sure if a 64 is going to be able to do much to stop Mark coming by and taking 9th place.
No, the pace difference is quite big here, so I imagine this will be an easy position to hoover up for Coltei as we head around the Curva Grande. Will he get the move? Will he make? Where is he? It's more or less a case of will he get the move, and more when and where will he get the move at this point in time. It's less than half a second. Is he going to try and dive into the chicane? No, he's just going to play it safe. I think he knows he's got a lot to lose from all that he's worked for to pull back from earlier on, so it's just find a nice safe place to get himself past the 64 and get himself through. I imagine we might see him with a better drive out of the second Lesmo, maybe have a move down through Ascari. If not, it'll be off the back of the Parabolica, I'd imagine. As you can see Volco perhaps struggling a little bit through the second Lesmo there, just missing the apex a little bit compared to what Coltei was able to do, and that will give Coltei the run. Is Volco going to defend this at all into Ascari? Yes, he is, and forces Coltei to stick behind him for the time being. And a nice little bit of racing, even with the pace difference. Volco putting up as much of a fight as he can do. Coltei is all over the back of him at the moment, down towards the Parabolica, and Coltei's dived up the inside, and that could be all she wrote for this particular on-track battle. As Coltei manages to slow it down in time and hook it up to the apex, and that will be Coltei off into the distance now, hunting down Gabler in P8.
Yeah, he's hunting down Gabler in that P8. Well, that gap is, quite significant at the moment. Gabler, you can see, just making his way around the Curva Grande. Coltei, 30 seconds behind. He's been quick in this race. Not sure he's quick enough to maybe pull out that 15 second. And catching up to these is the leaders. Demarchi then almost setting his personal best on the previous lap, managing to pull that gap back out to 2.3 seconds ahead of David O'Hack. Samba, just for whatever reason, just struggling a bit at the start of this stint. He's now 5 seconds behind David, but still looking on for a podium. Klaus Christensen, who basically, since lap 1 of this race, seems to have been just driving around on his own. He dropped back from, Demarchi, O'Hack, Samba, and Samba, earlier on in this race. Schultz, the rest that had those massive battles, all seem to be fighting among themselves. Christensen, sometimes drivers don't mind a bit of a boring race. It's been in 4th place. He's had no dramas whatsoever. And he's just, I imagine, stroking it home and finding out a bit more about what this car can do.
Yeah, absolutely. He may not have been too happy in there to see some of the misfortune that's befallen some of the other ERT drivers as the team manager, but he's definitely putting in a good race so far. And he's done a GT3 season before in the Lamborghini, so the car's not completely new to him, but perhaps just becoming reaccustomed with it. And he's coming home looking like he's going to come home for a good result, is Klaus Christensen so far in that number 76 car. With 13 minutes to go, looks like he might be just shy of the podium, but it's not out of the question that when we get to the likes of Imola or Misano, we could see him up there with the other three. Of course, very different tracks remaining on the calendar for the remainder of the season as well. Monza is a nice track to ease us into it, but Imola and Misano are very different beasts. So these orders may well mix up for the later parts. But a good start to the season is always what you want in terms of points, and just, getting that nervousness out of your system of, oh, am I going to do well? These guys might be really quick. Just getting that good result on the table can ease those nerves and just help you get better, consistent results.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Christensen said, I'm not really practicing too much for this in the pre-race interviews. It's just a bit of fun. I wonder if he's seeing his performance here and thinking, you know what, if I maybe put a couple of hours a week in, which seems to be the standard across the field or what the drivers are saying, put that little bit more time in, who knows, maybe I can just find a couple of tenths of a second a lap, and over a race this long, that could make all the difference, and we could see the 76, the Dane, battling for podiums a few more times. Only 12.5 minutes to go then in this race, as the drivers are now on lap number 26, and as it has been from the start of this race, things looking very nice indeed for Riccardo Demarchi. But number 29 now has a 2.7 second lead over David Hohack. Samba is a further 5.8 seconds back. Christensen, Schultz, Wing, Marius, Gabler, Coltei, Volco and Mellers, the 11 runners. Popa having quite a few incidents out on circuit. Dane having quite a big hit which led him to the pits And then I think having another moment, and Taylor Brady retiring very early on, I think it was lap number 2 or 3 of this race. Brady having a problem and unable to finish, and he would have been definitely a driver, I think, hoping to get himself up towards the top of the order. I feel like the main hope for OHAC now is DeMarchi either loses concentration, which is easier done when it gets towards the end of the race. You think, I'll just take it a bit easier, lose that little bit of edge, and sometimes driving at 90% can be harder than driving 100% because you're thinking more consciously about it. Or that DeMarchi has a bit of trouble with the lap cars, and he's behind Coltei at the moment. We saw earlier on, Coltei, if he feels like he's faster than you, he's not afraid to show it.
Yeah, absolutely, he isn't. Right now, I'm just keeping one eye on the pace because I was trying to do some quick commentator maths in my head from we saw Coltei with the pace he had earlier on. I'm trying to see if he can pull back on Gabler, but I don't think he's quite going to have enough time with 10 minutes left, unfortunately. Maybe he's about 2 seconds a lap faster at the moment, but time is not on his side for the time being, so it looks like Coltei might be resigned to finish in P9 in this one. For the moment, failing on any mistakes, of course, which, yeah, as the mental fatigue starts creeping in, mistakes could start to become a thing, but everybody in that little bit of clean air possibly will resolve them from having to think too hard about what's going on around them. Though saying that, Ricardo DeMarchi's got some traffic up ahead, and it is indeed one Mark Coltei in the number 21 car just up ahead of him. So, and we've seen Coltei before with these back marker. When he's a back marker, he's not one to take being lapped lying down. We saw him unlap himself earlier on. Could this be the thorn in the side for DeMarchi? 10 minutes of the race to go, and DeMarchi's got more pace than Coltei, but is Coltei going to fight him the same way we saw him fighting earlier on to unlap himself? As the answer to that is resounding no, as DeMarchi storms past him off of Viscarian into the Parabolica.
Yeah, it did seem right at the start of that lap. DeMarchi just went a bit deep into the braking zone for the Rettifilio. I think not held up by Coltei, just maybe a bit distracted by having that car a lot closer to him than he'd been used to having. So didn't lose any time, I don't think, on that lap, despite doing that. Still managed to set a 1:49.3, lost 2 tenths to OHAC, who really, with 9 minutes 23 seconds to go, is going to have to find a bit more than 2 tenths of a second if he really wants to have a bit of an impact in this race, as DeMarchi goes very deep, very wide, jumps over the sausage curbs of a sleeping policeman at turn number 1, but that is 2 laps in a row. We have seen Ricardo DeMarchi have a big moment into that first corner, and it looked to me, looking at his delta time, that he might have just gained a bit of time there.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I think he's lucky to not get away with a penalty for that one, because, as you say, he's gained 6 tenths on OHAC from that, and that will be an interesting one as time goes on, with him not being penalised for it. Of course, we've not seen him make too many off-track mistakes, so perhaps he's got that one going as to why he didn't get the penalty for that one, but nonetheless, yeah, that was obviously I'm not suggesting that was an intentional dive across to try and gain some time, but he has benefited from that little excursion over the sausage curbs. So yeah, but is that some pressure creeping in for DeMarchi now? Does he feel like OHAC might be able to come at him at the end of the race? Was that mental fatigue, as we were saying, just starting to creep in as well? Of course, we are now 52 minutes into a 1-hour race. They've been driving solidly around here for 27, nearly 28 laps. So it is entirely possible that perhaps just a momentary lapse of concentration there was the cause, and it'll definitely have woke him up. But are we going to see any more mistakes? Will OHAC pull it back? As I'm just seeing as well, OHAC, for all the time he lost in that lap, looked like he was gaining it back towards the middle sector. So all is not lost for the number 13 car.
Yeah, I wonder if DeMarchi was maybe quite wisely told to back it off a tiny bit on that lap, try to avoid any allegations that you've gained some time. But that was 2 laps in a row. We'd seen the race leader have a bit of a moment into turn number 1. That one on lap number 28, a lot more severe than what we saw on lap number 27. So maybe wisely, the 29 car, now on lap number 29, taking it a bit easier into the first corner in this Lamborghini Super Trofeo car, the Evo version, so a bit faster than the standard version, which came with the game. And he has got that gap now. It was 2.9 seconds as they crossed the finish line, 2.859. It just seems to be hovering around that point. And was the damage done in this race for David O'Hack on the run down towards turn 1. He got a better start to this race, if you remember, all that time ago, 50 plus minutes ago, but was not able to take advantage, and just a bit earlier on the brakes than DeMarchi, who had the inside line. The Italian got the lead. He's not really looked back since, and that is the first real chink in the armour we have seen from himself out in front. Some of the other drivers obviously still going their way around. Samba, he'll be reasonably happy with how things have gone. Qualified in 3rd place. It looks as though him and Brady were going to have a fantastic battle until Brady made a mistake into the Roggio way back on lap number 1 and then had his own issues. You got Christensen in 4th and Schultz in 5th place, who has just sort of benefited from mistakes from the drivers around him. Yes, he's had, you know, good pace, he's had good consistency, but Marius had that drive-through penalty. Coltei had his moments as well, getting the stop code. Dane had the contact with Wing. Schultz has kept it clean. Ooh, as I say, that goes very wide coming out of the second Lesmo, but nothing too much to worry about. Schultz has kept it clean from any major incidents and definitely reaping the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. Driving the epitome of to finish first. First you must finish. And okay, he's not finishing first, but he's finishing ahead of a lot of his rivals in this one with not much effort needed to be exerted. Just keep the car pointing in the right direction, keep it in the white lines, have a little bit of a drift, if you like, coming through the final part of Ascari, and away. The car behind him is Daniel Wing in the 243, and he's a good 9 seconds back, so it's looking pretty comfy at the moment for Schultz. So he just needs to, like every other driver at this point, there's not many battles brewing short of somebody making a mistake. So a lot of this next 5 minutes of the race is just going to be more a war of attrition than it is going to be a war of pace. Everybody just needing to keep their minds clear, keep the car pointing in a straight line, and you can come home with some solid points. But yeah, it's been a hell of a race so far. 4 minutes to go, looking like it's calmed down a bit, but we've seen some incredible action through this first round already of this Lambo Super Trofeo Cup, and there's still 2 more to go after this, which I can't believe we're going to have even more racing action as well. But this race still not done. 4 minutes to go, 4.5 minutes to go around Monza, and Riccardo DeMarchi still leads. Yeah,
DeMarchi's still leading. He's got that gap up now to about 3 seconds, just plugging away a couple of attempts a lap, which is what we saw him do in the last stint as well, to be perfectly honest. We weren't sure whether it was O'Hack, losing time, or DeMarchi gaining. I think it might be a bit of column 1 and a bit of column 2 at the moment, because Samba is now starting to build up the pace, but 7.5 seconds before laps to go. Unless the car in front of you has some sort of problem, you're never really going to gain that sort of gap. Other cars we've not seen for a while, obviously Daniel Wing. Very nice livery, I've got to say. That white and black striped Lambo with a bit of purple, very almost one hub colours, whether that was intentional from the 243 car, but it just looked very resplendent indeed. He's had a pretty quiet second part to the race. He's kept that gap constant at just under 10 seconds back to Schultz, but obviously not closing up enough and not really going to be threatening, although he does gain a bit more there now. 8.9 seconds the gap. He's doing okay in 6th place, and we said we'd keep an eye on how a different class of drivers do. Gabler, another one in sort of a similar vein to Schultz. Yes, he's not at the pace of the others. He's kept it nice and clean. I think he'd have taken 8th place at the start of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely would have taken 8th place at the start of the day. I think he's done really well to keep the car where he needs to, and to keep it out of trouble, and just capitalise on the mistakes of others around him throughout this one. I was just taking a look at my driver notes while we were talking about Daniel Wing. I couldn't find anything about Daniel Wing, so coming into it, he was one of the few unknowns on the grid. But I'd be very intrigued to see how he does through the remainder of the season. We've seen him involved in some great battles so far, and okay, one of them didn't really end very well for him with a little bit of the contact that we saw, but nonetheless, some great wheel-to-wheel racing we've seen Daniel Wing be involved in. So it'd be very intrigued to see how he does through Imola and Misano as well, with I believe 2, maybe in fact no, I think we've got probably 3 laps of the race to go. Looking at the times, yes. So Riccardo DeMarchi's crossing the line now. He'll do this lap, then he'll take the white flag, I believe. Will be how this will play out. So just a few laps to go. We'll be crossing the line. I think that will make it 33 laps around Monza, and it is looking very comfortable for Demarchi now. He's pulled out even more of a lead on back up to 5 seconds, that gap now. So just cruising home, the Italian around one of his home circuits in an Italian car. Nothing more perfect than that, if you are Riccardo Demarchi.
Yeah, he's loving it, and he's not exactly taking it easy. He has extended that gap. He set the fastest lap of the race as well. He's become the first man to get into the 1:48 in this race with a 1:48.920. He is absolutely flying around this circuit at the moment. The best form of defence is attack, and really outside of those first few laps, once he built a gap up, he's just been able to push at his own level, got that gap up to 4.8 seconds, and enjoying things quite a bit at the moment. It's been a cleaner second half of the race. We have seen less battles once the field spread out after the pit stops, and a few of the drivers like Marius and Coltei that were involved in some of the battles earlier on, picking up drive-through penalties and a stop-go penalty respectively. And that has sort of ended things for them. They'll have a chance to recover. Coltei still pushing as hard as he possibly can at the moment, still trying to, I think, break that gap down. He's got it down towards 20 seconds, so clearly showing that he's got better pace than Gabler, but was always going to be up against the clock, and he's not doing too bad of a job of holding on to the back of O'Hack as well. Samba has not been able to catch up to him yet, so who knows, maybe in later races this season we'll be able to see Coltei go on to do great things in this series. But Demarchi rounding the parabolica for what will be the 32nd time for him, not quite setting the blistering pace on this lap as he did the lap before.
Leader is on the final lap. Give it all you can.
Well, there you go. You heard the message there. Leader is on the final lap then. So Demarchi, all he has to do, nice and steady, bring it home, and he will claim the victory here in the first race of the Super Trofeo Trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. The white flag coming out a lap sooner than I was expecting, as I think I'm more used to the way the iRacing timer works compared to how the ACC timer works, but there we go. Leader on the final lap, it will be 33 completed laps for him, and a very, very solid 33 laps indeed. I can see many people echoing the sentiment throughout the chat as well. A very impressive performance by Riccardo Demarchi in this race to keep that lead after what we thought was going to be a little bit of a slower start. It did seem like O'Hack got the better of him when we went green, but with the inside line, Demarchi managed to hold him off and keep his number 29 car ahead as he heads around Lesmo 2 for the final time and down towards the Scari. Then he doesn't have to really think about who's behind him. O'Hack still 5 seconds down the road, that blistering pace we saw, and he's the last lap he was 3/10 faster than O'Hack behind him. He has absolutely blitzed the field, and yeah, he made his pit stop right at the end of the pit window as well, so he's going to have so much more tyres left than everybody else, which probably explains where all of this super late pace is and why he was able to pump in the fastest lap of the race on lap 31 of 33. But we head down towards the Parabolica then for one final time with Riccardo Demarchi. We've got the number 69 car of Mele's just up ahead, but won't be getting in the way as we round the final corner with Riccardo Demarchi, who comes towards the line and crosses the line to win round one of the Lambo Super Trofeo Cup in dominant fashion. David O'Hack comes across the line to finish third, and Nathan Samba just behind him coming across to finish out the podium. And yeah, a dominant performance from Demarchi to take the victory here, but O'Hack's still been nipping at his heels the entire race, and it's going to be a close one.
Yeah, O'Hack looking, well, Demarchi I should say, looking very chilled indeed, and that's I think the first time we've seen any sort of mistake from him all day. Just clearly wanting to get himself closer to the fans. I'm not sure whether that's the wisest point of the circuit to start doing at any moment, but the flares are out, and you've got the rest of the drivers finishing towards the line as well. Christensen in fourth place, a solid performance from him, and a solid performance from this man as well, Julian Schultz. He is going to round out the top five, and Daniel Wing was starting to close up to him in the final few laps, but was never quite closing up enough to really have a major part in the final part of this race. Wing comes home in 6th place. It is going to be Marius in 7th, Gabler 8th, Coltei 9th, Volco in 10th, Meles laps down in 11th place at the moment, and Pope, Dane and Brady failing to finish here at One Hub, as I'm sure everyone watching is familiar with. You've got to pick a driver of the day of a commentator and pick a question to ask that driver of the day on the Discord after. So I'm going to come to you, Paul. Who is your driver of the day, and what would you like to ask them?
Oh, that's going to be a very interesting one. There's so many drivers that you could pick driver of the day from. Though, to be honest, as much as we saw some mistakes from him, I think Coltei showed the pace that he has, and he definitely pulled back from that penalty in quite an impressive fashion, and I have to wonder where he may have finished if he hadn't received that penalty and where he thought he might be on pace. So that would be my question to him as well. You know, where do you think you could have finished if you didn't get that penalty, and where are you aiming for the remainder? Now you've seen the pace of the rest of the drivers. Do you think you can mix it up at the top with the likes of Demachi and Ohak and Samba and take the fight to them for the remaining 2 rounds?
Yeah, so that's the question you're going for. I'm going to go for the man who finished in 5th place. I'm going to go for Julia Schultz, just because he managed to keep it clean. And that is going to be my question to him. Is that something you worked on, trying to keep it clean in the races and seeing what you could do while some of your other rivals had trouble? Those are the questions we've asked. That will all be going to the Discord, of course. Hopefully, it won't be too long before we are able to get some of our top 3 drivers in, because they had, I think we can comfortably say, judging by from what we saw in this race and in qualifying, they definitely had the pace over everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. It was almost like there was 2 leagues of cars out there at some points with the pace difference. So yeah, staggering performance.
Yeah, staggering indeed. We are just going to wait for some of the drivers to pop in, and as we say that, someone's coming already, so we might as well, you know, get these post-race interviews started as quickly as possible. And we're going to start with the man who finished in 3rd place, Nathan Samba. Great job from yourself today, Nathan. Just couldn't quite catch up to those top 2 drivers. Tell us how it went for you.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised with my pace, to be honest. I didn't practice a lot. In the first stint, they drove away the first 2, and then the second part of the first stint, I was catching up to Ohak, and I was like getting more and more confidence, and then I decided to do an earlier pit stop than them, and I feel like that was the wrong choice, because the second stint they just drove away and I couldn't catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry there, Luke. I was just gonna say, yeah. So the pit stop, then really what you're considering to be the only thing that kept you out of that lead battle, and you say you've not done much practice going into this one. Now you've seen the pace and you know how close you are to those top 2. Are you going to maybe maybe you could devote a bit more time to practice for the remaining 2 rounds? Maybe just to find that extra couple of tenths to put you right up there with Ohak and try and fight for that victory?
Yeah, this race made me a bit more motivated to practice more, because for this race I came on my PC 5 minutes before. Of course I did some practice earlier in the week, but not a lot. But you can expect hopefully better from me next week.
Yeah, certainly. Well, still a great performance from yourself. Tell us about lap number 1 of the race, because it looked like you and Taylor Brady got quite close together. We saw Taylor go off at the chicane. Was that just a mistake from himself?
Yeah, I think he just broke too late. But the first corner I just went way too early on the brakes, because I didn't want any damage. I was so scared. And I was actually in a party with him. I was like, you know what, just go, I'll just stay behind you, and then he made that mistake a bit later on. So
yeah, certainly it did ended up costing him in the end. You got your first podium of the season. We'll let you head off. Congratulations, Nathan.
thank you.
We're now going to bring in the man who finished in 2nd in this place, David Ohak. And Paul, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, so a very strong performance from you there, David, to come home in P2. It looked like at times that you were going to be able to challenge Demachi for the lead. Was there ever a time that you may have thought, oh, I can get him here, or were you just that little bit unable to get through?
Yes, the first laps was really good, but Demacho had a great pace. The first lap was great fight, but then I have some problems with the curbs and tire pressures. But we have still 2 rounds to go, so.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 rounds to go, and a strong result puts you in good contention already. And I imagine that's going to be a fight that we see throughout this between yourself and Demachi. But we also heard some fighting words there from Nathan Sambo, who's just come in for the interview, who wants to be challenging you. So yeah, is there anything you'd like to say to your rivals coming into the next 2 rounds? Sort of to sort of hype
Big
them out.
congratulations to Demarchi and how I say, we have still 2 rounds to go, so I have still time to do something with it.
Absolutely. Anything from you, Luke?
Yeah, just tell us about the start of the race, David, because it looked for a second as though you got a much better start than Ricciardo. Just him having that inside line obviously gave him the advantage into turn 1.
Yes, because like I say, on round 4 or 5, I think I have a little bit problems with the tire pressures, and then of course with the curbs too. So I lose the gap, and Demarchi was really good and fast. So he had really good pace. So I lose the gap, and then I make 2 or 3 mistakes, and yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was it for you, but still obviously a very good race from yourself.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you very much for joining us for an interview there as well, David. And yeah, congratulations on a podium to start off your season here on ACC PC in One Hub.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks to David for joining us and Nathan as well. Unfortunately, it looks like Ricciardo isn't going to be able to join us, so we're pretty much towards the end of this stream. I think, first half of that race, we saw plenty of action in the midfield. Died down a bit in the second, and Ricciardo just doing a very professional job. As David said, he was struggling with the tyre pressures a bit, struggling with the curbs, and Ricciardo, apart from that one mistake we saw, I think on lap 22, or I think it might have been a bit later than that, around about lap 26, lap 27, when he went off at the chicane. Apart from that, looked pretty much faultless.
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty much, as you say, pretty much faultless. So yeah, a very high bar being set in this first round of the season. But we're off to Imola next, which is a very interesting track, a very different track to Monza as well. So there's going to be, as I can just see the calendars flicked up. As I said, that was almost perfectly orchestrated. But yeah, Imola next week is going to be very interesting indeed. And I wonder if the different style of track is going to mean we're going to have different pace setters around there as well. So I'm very intrigued to see how the season unfolds through round 2 of 3 next time out.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see that one, so make sure to check that out on this channel as well. And of course, let's not forget there is still the PlayStation side of things here on ACC as well. They've got their own races going on. They also started on the Tuesday nights. They've got round number 2 there, Donington Park, my commentalist. He's looking to get his title charge really up and running after finishing in 2nd place last time out. So we'll see what he can do at the Leicestershire circuit. Thanks so much to everyone for watching. Thanks to Nathan and David for joining us for interviews. Thanks to Paul for joining me in the commentary box. And we will see you in a week's time at Imola. Can Ricciardo make it 2 wins out of 2 and get a real hand on this championship? Will David fight back? Or will we see someone else towards the front of the order? There's only one way to find out, and that is to tune in a week's time. But from myself and Paul, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.